Hey guys, my name is Nick Beliveau. Thank you once again for joining us. Today we have Bianca Zaletti and Freddie Aubuchon joining us. They're two entrepreneurs that are the youngest of our cohort here in ICmtl and have an interesting background. And over the past 2 months, we've seen a lot of change already. So I'm excited to see where you guys are at now, and then also follow up in a couple months to see how you guys progress through your entrepreneurial journey. But maybe quickly, like in a minute each, introduce yourselves, what you've worked on, and what you're working on now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm my name is Fred. I'm I'm an ex-business student from John Abbott College. I was in business for 2.5 years until I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that my program wasn't really catered to what I wanted to do. So it wasn't really catered towards entrepreneurs. It was really catered towards people becoming, going to work for a corporation or learning how to work for somebody else and getting internships. And I realized that that wasn't for me. So when I heard about this program, I decided I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And now we're working on an application together. Me and you.
Hey, so I'm Bianca, as you know. And recently I've come back from a 2-year venture that I took to Europe. So I was living in Ireland. And while I was there, I learned a lot about like self-discovery, and I was doing a lot of work with like health clubs and nutrition and stuff like that. So I saw a whole different part to the entrepreneur side that I hadn't before I left and moved to Ireland. Upon like being back, I realized that there was just something missing, and by being in this course, it finally like put me on like the right track to starting to do like what it is that I want to do with my life. I never believed in corporation or organization, so hopefully this takes me where I need to be.
So you guys were both in business school. How did you guys meet?
I wasn't in business school. He was.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
She was traveling. She lived in Ireland for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So we never, yeah. But like, how did we meet? Like as business partners, or like the other way?
What other way? Please explain. Tell me about your relationship.
We're in a
also
relationship.
That's why it's like it's awkward.
But how we met in the same. So I guess it's the same for both ways. We met. I worked with her mom at a place called the Cambridge. It's a residency in the West Island, and basically we were going out as a staff night, and
I happened to be there.
She happened to be there. Her mom talked about her a lot, and she said, "Okay, well, like one of our coworkers had come out one night, and that's just where we met." And since that day, we just had an instant connection, and not only on just like a relationship level, but also on the business side, we saw eye to eye on everything. We talked about entrepreneurship within the first weeks of knowing each other, even before getting the getting to know each other part. Yeah. We even spoke about business.
We like convulged our like deepest, darkest secrets with businesses and business ideas that we had, and so I think from then on, it was pretty inevitable that he stuck with me. So.
And how do you guys find that, like building a business together, both? As well as being in a relationship?
It's the most challenging thing I've ever had to do in my entire life.
Yeah, it's
literally. I'm only 22, and that by far tops everything I've ever had to go through in my life.
It's tough because it's hard when you're in a relationship with someone. It's tough to take the personal out of the business. It's kind of hard to segregate the two, because when your feelings are hurt about something in a business, when it's just a business partner that's saying something to you, okay, at the end of the day, you go each home. But for us, what it is when we have conflicts or we have anything that's decision, it carries home with us too, and it just translates into what we do. And if we disagree on something, if one of us gives constructive criticism to the other, they might take it personally. Yeah. So that's something that differentiates when a relationship is in a business together compared to two people just doing a business together that don't have.
I feel like it's already so like difficult to like be with somebody every single day, because obviously sometimes you do need like that space, which isn't like something that like we necessarily have, because it's not only that we're in business together, but we also like we have a relationship together, so that becomes difficult. But I also feel like it's also one of the best journeys though that I've embarked in as well, because it also has a lot of benefits to it. It's like our best business idea that we've recently come up with is because we're together.
So explain those 3 that you've had so far, just to give everybody like an idea of like where you've come and where you're at now.
Sure. You do cookie dough, I'll do revolution. We do the last one together? Okay.
So the first idea we had was to bring edible cookie dough shop to Montreal. We thought it was a really good idea. We got a lot of good feedback on it. We talked to a lot of people about it. But essentially what it came down to in the end is that we felt that it was something very important to be first to market. Then we realized that one of our competitors who had opened up a pop-up shop in Quartier des 30 had plans on moving to a downtown location. So when we realized that, we pieced together that one, it was very important to be first to market, but at the same time, we also realized that it was never that great of an idea to begin with. It was just something that we wanted to do. We identified a market and we thought it was good, and after a little bit, we just decided otherwise. We just decided that it wasn't the best idea for us anymore. We had bigger ideas in mind, and then we evolved to our second idea,
which was the Revolution Food Trucks in corporate. That idea sprung from a late breakfast that we had one day at Ben and Florentine in the West Island, and we were sitting in this car and we're like, okay, we're not doing cookie dough anymore. What are we gonna do? And we just started bouncing ideas based off like edible food trucks and stuff that are around the locations and Montreal. And then I was talking about living in Ireland, and somehow the two coincided, and we ended up creating a food bus that would not only like travel to like point spots, but to also like bring an experience that wasn't available to the market. And we decided in Europe, so we would have actually packed up and left probably by the end of the year, essentially, if that's how that idea would have worked out. And then from there, we went to eWeek together, right, with the class and stuff, and we were hearing loads of ideas about about how people are having a lot of pains like scheduling, even in the food market too. Like one of the pains that we realized through our interviews was that people can never find a time to correspond, regardless if it's even eating with their family. So then we've kind of shifted from there to this.
So from the food sector to technology.
Essentially.
Yeah.
To help people figure out commonalities between their schedules to make it easier to meet.
Yeah.
And also some innovative features to figure out like the best spot to meet as well, right?
Of course.
Cool. Okay. And historically, like, have you guys ever had any entrepreneurial experience before this program? Like, have you ever tried to launch a business, even if it was like a lemonade stand, for example?
Well, personally, the idea of all this stems from maybe more of a marked down version of the same concept. When I was at John Abbott, I attended this place that someone who became my friend in the end called the Entrepreneur Club, and we started doing weekly meetings, and we started bouncing ideas back and forth of how we can improve student life, and eventually this idea was created. And we had a startup for about 6 months, but ultimately it failed when it came down to looking at the costs and just people not being as dedicated as others in the project, and that idea just eventually died down. So that was the one time I actually considered myself being part of a startup or something I took on. You had also World Ventures, no?
Oh yeah, when I was in Ireland, I met a really good friend of mine who happened to work at the health club, and he introduced me to a different business called World Ventures, which is traveling at 3-star prices at 5-star locations, which was an amazing idea. It was super implemented. I just didn't have like the funds or the time or the energy to put all of my aspects into that, but it was an idea that converged all around Europe, and it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And then another one as well that I was looking to do is that I used to live in a small rural place in Ireland, and I was looking to actually open up a cafe type of there, but due to like my visa expiring, and I only had 2 years, and you can't work and go to school at the same time, so I couldn't get any of the degrees that I needed, and I couldn't get the funds, and I couldn't get government grants or loans. That's an idea that later like didn't end up happening for me. But something that's like so like that I'm like reminiscing about is that it actually ended up opening like anyways, regardless if I was there or not. So something that like could have been didn't. So that's where I kind of feel like we're growing now, like that I'm here now. So maybe like that idea wasn't meant to be in the end anyways.
Okay.
You know?
But what I find is it comes to show that even though we come from two completely separate backgrounds, even on our own two sides, we've always both been entrepreneurs in our minds, and we've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, or always thinking of ways of improving things, or thinking of business concept. It just goes to show that when we met each other, then we realized how much of entrepreneurs we are as individuals and how much better we could be as a team.
Okay. And how do you guys see the path, like from idea which clearly you have a lot of, to action. How do you see, this idea, or be it another, how do you view that? Because if it's just an idea, you could say you're an entrepreneur, but if you're not actually making money from the business idea, if it's not actually a physical business, it's just still an idea. So how do you guys see from moving from idea to action? What's the biggest struggles maybe you're facing?
I guess it's just, especially with this new idea, it's going to be very capital heavy. So it's something that we really need to be 100% certain of and really understand our client base very well before that. But the struggles is really the only thing that separates good ideas from someone with a good idea from an entrepreneur is execution. Like you said, how we go about doing that is complicated. It's having to put in the money in the first place. I guess that's what the struggle is because to start a business, you need money. And to even have that money to begin with, you need to work a lot. So it's really coming up with the money. So I would say that's probably the top struggle with starting a business is finding the funds. Even if you fund via crowdfunding or any other source of investors or loans or anything, it's putting a lot on the risk. So that's the biggest struggle with starting a business is that you're going to have to invest a lot of your own money and time, and you got to make sure that it works before you put that money on the line.
Okay, and you, Bianca, what do you think is the biggest barrier from moving from idea to action?
Time management. I feel like there's not enough hours in the day to execute everything that I'd like to execute, and for me, it's something huge that I struggle with. Like, I can't manage my own schedule. I plan on waking up, let's say at 6 a.m. and getting this and this done, and it just doesn't happen. And so for me, a big part of it is about time management. And I feel like if you don't have proper time management and you don't have the proper things set throughout your day in order to manage your time accordingly and plan, then nothing's going to get executed, and nothing gets executed without time.
So how are you going to become entrepreneurs if you can't figure out how are you going to figure out those two challenges then?
Creating an app that helps that.
Essentially, yeah.
It's the chicken and egg problem.
Exactly.
Chicken and egg problem, exactly.
And you're going to be stuck for a little while there.
That's it. And for the money, it's this time I think we're just going to have to be 100% certain of our shot before we go and put money on it. But
So explain really the path from moment now to first client. What does that look like? What are the steps between there?
App development and but before app development, actually there's a lot of customer research to be done, and there's a lot of evaluating what the actual problems in the scheduling are. There's a lot of contacts to be made, a lot of phone calls to be made, and then once we have all the resources well put together, then it's app development.
So research, app development, then you go find your customers.
Well, partnerships as well.
Yeah.
We need to make established partnerships in order
So is that the leanest way you could go about
I
paying
can
your
think
first
of
customer?
one more lean way is that to be able to demonstrate all the qualities of the product even before developing would be to crowdfund a little bit to gain some funds, and then you can sell the premium features of the application as a pre-sale, and then you can already have your first sales even before the app is developed. So I think that'd be a bit of a leaner model, because then you would get donations, and then you'd gain a little bit of traction beforehand. But that's still in the strategy that we have yet to figure out right now. We're still in very early stages.
I think it's more so like just like building a name for yourself before the company gets launched, so that by the time you hit customer one, you're also hitting 1,000 other customers at the same time.
That's true.
I disagree with the process, but which is fine. And I think that the first step is the best one, which you guys are doing is customer development. Mm. But I think you could also think of alternatives to bring the value of, as we spoke earlier, simplicity, and for businesses, what did we mention? It was reducing absenteeism.
Yeah. It was increasing. Reducing absenteeism or like bringing.
So essentially, I know you guys want to have an app, right? And Well, first of all, one way would just be through having another person, somebody on your team who's actually able to develop it, and you know, just having that person so you don't have to spend any money. I'm in the philosophy that bootstrapping is the best way to build a company. You know you're familiar with the term bootstrapping?
A little bit.
Essentially, you finance your project by the customers that are paying you.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you find somebody who has a very complicated schedule, instead of an app, it could just be you have physically, as humans, as the company owners, access to their calendar. They want to schedule a meeting, you call them, and you're the one that does the booking for your customer. You are the app in this example. Yes, it's more time intensive. Yes, it's not the most efficient way, but you're testing if you're able to deliver the value to your customer. And if you're able to do that, how much are they willing to pay you for that? You could tell them you guys have a software or whatever. You could make a show and mirrors, but in reality, the best way is to get your first customer next week. So if thinking of just all the possible ways that you could deliver that value, do you think you guys, through your interviews, maybe not next week, because I encourage you to do a lot of interviews, but you know, maybe by the end of the year, you have your first customer where you're essentially calendar management experts.
Yeah. I just find that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do, because like if we're providing a service and charging people for it, that's not exactly what our platform is trying to do. Our platform is trying to simplify people's lives, but the masses of the people who are using the applications, it comes to free for them. So we're not trying to charge them for services of simplifying their lives. We're trying to actually get that for free for the mass of people. Our revenue streams come from people who want to pay for a little bit more
the more technical side of it.
The more technical side of it and the more complicated features, or something a little more than that, or maybe advertising in the long run. But right now what we really want to do is help people without even proving that we have a product to sell. We just want to help people with the application, and I think the money will come in the long run.
I'm curious to see where this leads to, but we're out of time for today. But thank you for sharing where you're at. It's super interesting to see your progression, and that you guys one are brave enough to take on coming up with ideas and actually trying to work on it, because it's it does take a lot of energy, and not everybody is willing to do that. So kudos. And we'll follow up in January. Well, not January, pardon. In June or May, June, if you guys are cool with that.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Not a problem.
Well, thanks everyone. Tune in next time. We're going to be interviewing Melissa, and after I'm off to Florida, so no more interviews for another week. But then, or maybe in Florida, we'll interview people. Who knows? Anyways, see you next time.